We're preoccupied with labeling ourselves, and that's one of the biggest self-sabotages out there, is because we completely eliminate the fact that we are nuanced dimensional beings. So for instance, if you start labeling your attachment style as I'm anxious or I'm avoidant, then the more you say that, the more you actually exhibit those behaviors, because you start to have this whole self-concept that, well, I'm anxious, and then you start to tell people that, and you just keep going with this story that, well, I'm anxiously attached, and so I'm probably going to attract an avoidant, or I'm an avoidant, so I can never be in a relationship. There's something really wrong with me. You talk like that to yourself, and you constantly absorb videos analyzing these different labels, and this is just scratching the surface. Like, one of the labels is attachment style, another label could be your Myers-Briggs personality, another label is your astrology or your rising sun and moon, and another label is the characters that you believe you're like or want to be like. Or other labels of getting into like character structures with somatic, like you're like, I'm a rigid character structure. Or even when you get into labels of what you like in, people refer to themselves as they can't wake up in the morning without coffee. It's a limitation. They think that, and then it manifests. Or they think, I can't imagine socializing without wine. And then of course we have labels now that have gotten into more levels of kind of victimhood hierarchy, where you're always looking for what hang-ups, what vulnerabilities, what history of oppression, what kind of intellectual or psychological disabilities and vulnerabilities that you have. And there's such an obsession, and we're even labeling ourselves by our pronouns in a way that is preoccupied with labels, I ams all over the place. And this is natural. Like, it's very natural to want to figure ourselves out and to label ourselves to others and to get to that point of who am I and talking about it, of course. But what you're labeling yourself and what you repeatedly kind of think of yourself as becomes your reality. It becomes your self-concept, and it becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy. So if you go around saying, I'm bad at relationships, I'm this type of attachment, I'm also Aquarius, so I'm pretty detached. Like, say you just talk like that, that's just that's just an onslaught of kind of your weaknesses that you constantly perpetrate and focus on. And it's not just that it's manifesting in a very overt way either. It's a subconscious program that you're constantly running. Even if you kind of tell yourself that, well, I'm somebody that looks good in this color, that's a limit, because you get kind of caught in, this is who I am, so I'm not going to change. Or it's why people don't move. Well, they'll think I'd hate cities. I was there for 3 days, and I thought, great to visit, not going to live here. All of these things put you into such a limited, rigid thing that you won't even realize the way that it's caging you. And that's why you should take a personality quiz of the Big Five to see your level of openness, because your openness is a very important trait. And your openness, if you start to get rigid with these labels, then you limit yourself. And of course, it's helpful. The reason I'm talking about this is not because I'm sitting up on a hill not doing it. I'm constantly kind of looking for ways to better understand myself, label myself, introspection, and I do focus on it. I go through kind of periods, but I've gone through enough phases of my life where I kind of obsess about a certain kind of character structure or kind of personality, and kind of analyze that about myself or others. And then I realize how it starts to limit me, both with how I think about myself, but also how I think about others, because I might just think, well, they'll never be able to commit because they're an avoidant attachment, or they'll never do this because they're a Scorpio, whatever it may be. And so just be aware of when you're fixating on these I am labels to a point where you're limiting yourself. And it could be really small. It could be about how you don't want to wear low-rise jeans because you want to have some protection, or it could be a lot of things, but it's just pay attention to that. Pay attention to how you're closing up, because it's natural to close up as you get older, and you've got to be the more open you are, curious, and always open to change and flexibility and trying new things is what keeps you actually the best self you can be. Because as soon as you start to tell yourself a story that, well, I'm this, and have a limitation or a doubt or a fixation on how you have to be or should be, or what you should be grateful for, what kind of jeans you should wear, what kind of makeup you should wear, what kind of personality you are in a situation. Assess your self-concept. And yes, yeah, you don't want to go, maybe if you go the other way and you start to kind of constantly say that you're perfect and wonderful, yes, there's a level of delusion maybe, but it's still, it's not about just compliments. It's about even very neutral, innocuous kinds of things. Just look at the story you're telling about yourself and who you can be. Because you can be a lot of things. You can have so many phases and be so many people and so much dimension and nuance that just don't limit yourself, and don't get caught in looking up behavior patterns and thinking, well, that's me and that's how I'll act, so uh-oh, self-sabotage. Don't limit yourself that way. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you start to look at how many ways that you do this, because even just with that phrase, like I said, I need coffee to wake up in the morning, there's just little things we do all the time that are limitations we impose on ourselves that we can adapt in freakishly fast and freakishly flexible. So, and even that word freakishly, that's a little derogatory. No need to bring it down. It should be more of a compliment. It shouldn't say freakishly fast. It should be amazingly. So, hope this was good.